And Nehek will not merely endure, but prosper, as DJ Khatep goes live, not alive. RuinusInsight here, welcoming you to part 1 of a brand new modded SFO Grimhammer III Tomb Kings campaign. Chosen by community vote, one of the most loyal and dutiful but shafted lords in the lore and in the game, considering his hard starting location, Khatep is here to make sure that everyone else suffers in kind. Also, Tomb Kings have some of the aesthetically coolest looking units in the game, so I'm pretty excited to return to them. But before Nehek rises from the sands, a couple quick notes. If you enjoy this content and want to see it updated regularly, don't forget to drop your likes and comments for the algorithm down below, as scheduling, episode, and campaign length are tied to engagement. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to perks, consider joining our Patreon, becoming a channel member, or purchasing your games through one of our affiliates. As always, a huge shout out to the modders for their fantastic work, and the biggest of shout outs to you guys for your comments and support. YouTube for now remains my hobby, not my day job, and your comments keep it fun and keep this channel alive. Anyway, we're going to take a quick look at the faction, but do feel free to skip to gameplay if not interested via the chapters below. Now, Khatep, being the head of the mortuary cult, is all about powering them up. He gets additional Lich Priest capacity, access to unique Lich Priest lords, and reduction in both rite and cult crafting costs. This is really important as it enables you to awaken legions of legend and get more armies on the field faster. He also gets a unique campaign effect that comes up every 40 turns, and an extended tech tree to reflect his wisdom, all of which we'll see when we actually start up the game. For his own lord effects, he doesn't buff any units, which is a bit odd. He should probably buff Hyro Titans since they have high priests inside them, but whatever. What he does do is build faster and cheaper, move further, and significantly increase experience of heroes in his army, which allows his stack to act as a sort of training ground for high-level heroes. For the gameplay setup, we're going very hard, which I find to be the sweet spot, and with the AI stats modifier and just dialed up to max. And that's about it. All glory to the algorithm. Let's play our first set.
We are Nehek's exiles.
Alright, yes, the Exiles of Nehek are Nehek's exiles. Thank you for your bountiful wisdom, Khatep. Truly I see why you are the Grand Hierophant. Now, it looks like we get to start immediately with that choice of a buff of some kind, and I guess we'll give this a read before picking. It's every 40 turns that we get to choose one of these, so this will guide our next 40 turns, and I imagine a pretty important decision before us. So, though Khatep has been banished from Khemri by the wrathful Setra, his role in preventing the complete fall of the nation has not been forgotten. To aid him in his quest to bring about the Day of Awakening, he has been granted an advisor of his choosing. So, we've got Canopic Jars, a little bit of trade, global recruitment capacity +4, pretty strong, and 5 ward save on in foreign territory. Very nice, and ooh, Geheb's Blessing. It should be Geheb, not Gaheb, I'm pretty sure. Campaign movement range +25, very strong. Constant casualty replenishment, and regeneration for every unit of every army faction wide. Damn. That's insane. This is probably our late game pick, assuming these 4 are the same picks throughout. Mortuary Circ Orc, okay, I don't even need to look at anything else. This has +50 growth, and in the early game, especially with the Tomb Kings, especially in SFO, and probably especially with Khatep, you really want that early growth. Plus it'll give us a little bit of miscast chance, a little bit of cooldown reduction. Seems Khatep-centric. And the Will of the Desert is, well, only for when defending. Seems to be a kind of vortex effect, maybe a Skullstorm, bound Skullstorm. Lastly, we have Demands of the Mad Artist, which, damn, is quite strong as well. Early game control and research rate, though we lose 25 or 30, I don't remember research, when building or getting our first tech up and running. This will counteract that one, and enable us to get a second army probably like 5 turns earlier. Then there are the capacities, which are quite nice as well, but the problem is the construction time plus 50. It's a huge debuff, especially for the Tomb Kings who are so reliant on getting buildings up and running as fast as possible. Yeah. I think we're going to go for Mortuary Oracle. Gotta have that growth, so we will consult a High Priest, and now we're on field. Alright, how they play. For those not familiar with the Tomb Kings, we seek the Books of Nagash to get various buffs, and depending on the particular book and where it's located, we'll be acquiring some in the early game and probably some in the very, very late game. Some are on armies, some are in locations. This one's in Quintex, and this one's in Hexo Battle, for example. Otherwise, we get canopic jars, which are the unique currency of the Tomb Kings, which allows you to forge items, unlock regiments of renown-ish type units, regiments of legend, mortuary regiments, I don't remember what they're called, and awaken new armies and a bunch of other stuff. We can construct buildings and units for free, because that's the nature of the Tomb Kings, and lastly we research dynastic technologies, each one of which will get us a new army capacity, and considering our armies are free, it's a pretty good thing to have. Alrighty, now let's see what we've got here. Huh? I already looked at this. Exiles of Nehek, no. Engage the enemy. Yes, we will be attacking you. First, in fact, let's jump on into the attack immediately. First of all, you have Wise, so free canopic jars. And you are a Lich Priest of Light. I imagine Khatep is a Lich Priest of Nehek, and therefore will be able to get a use out of both of those abilities. Lovely. Or those types of lore. Now, just quickly, you know what, we'll take a look at this afterwards. I want to jump into the first fight immediately. Great Dynasty stance gives us a constant casualty or punishment rate. I wonder if we can use it in settlements. I guess we're going to find out. Anyway, we're going to jump into our first cinematic fight. For those new to the channel, we do cinematic battles around here for most fights, with the exception of the ones that are too easy. Granted, this one is a first battle and is designed so you cannot lose it, so it will be too easy. However, traditionally we do a cinematic battle as it's a reintroduction to the Lord for the first battle as well. So, away we go.
Sacrifice them!
Alrighty, sacrifice them indeed. A short speech from Khatep to start our debut battle, but hopefully we'll have a few longer ones as we go. I don't even remember what his quest is like, his staff quest, but I guess we'll see later on. Anyway, Khatep and co will move towards the enemy, and it looks like the enemy will not react to us in any way, so we can set up as we want. We have one unit of Ringers, our single unit of Necropolis Knights, which shouldn't be particularly threatened by anything in the enemy stack, so we can use them to dish out most of the damage. And, of course, Khatep also has his Bound ability now, his Sandstorm, which we're going to activate on the enemy and see just how much damage it does and how long it lasts. It'll be interesting to combine this ability with the regular sort of Skullstorm ability and just put storms all over the battlefield against the enemies as we go on later on. Anyway, following the Skullstorm or the Sandstorm, we used a Shem's Burning Gaze upon the Orc War Boss, barely doing any damage, but the idea was to try to annoy the enemy into moving towards us. Unfortunately, they did not want to, and so we'll have to do it ourselves. The Skeleton Warriors will be in the lead, moving in a unison, and over here the units of Necropolis Knights charge in and start in on the Goblin Wolf Riders. That is a terrible matchup, even though these are the anti-infantry Necropolis Knights and not the Halberdier variant. Is it halberds? I'm pretty sure it's a halberd variant, not the lance variant, but there's an anti-large variant, and these guys are anti-infantry. Nonetheless, the wolf riders are pretty darn fragile type of light cav, and they stand no chance against the Necropolis Knights. Otherwise, our Nehekara warriors and our spears have engaged the enemy orc boys. The spears will try to hold the line, while the Nehekara warriors... Oh, nice belly flop from the orc war boss there. While the Nehekara warriors move in to flank and hit the enemy in the back as well. Of course, the Nehekara warriors have barely any melee defense to speak of, so they're relatively weak, and I would expect they would lose in a one-on-one against the boys, or at the very least take so much damage that they would be non-viable afterwards, so better to use them to flank. Otherwise, the battle is nearly ours already, as we expected it to be pretty quick. The Nehekara horsemen have tied up both of the enemy orc boys, and while they are going to start to take damage, especially with the enemy Wa active, and the fact that the Nehekara warrior, or horses rather, are pretty fragile, at least they're not firing, and besides, that gave enough time for the Necropolis Knights to overrun those poor, tiny, by comparison, wolf riders, and then charge into the enemy orc boys, arrow boys. Very nice there. Alrighty, pretty devastating charge, and then they can move back through the enemy line. Bounce power at about 90% in our favor. The last of the units of the Orc Boys is routing, and pretty much only the enemy war boss will remain. Not that we have anything really that could threaten the war boss, but I imagine once his army is dead, he'll be gone as well. How's the armor-piercing damage? Well, we get solid armor-piercing damage on the Necropolis Knights, and they are anti-infantry. It's just that they'll probably get into each other's way. Oh wow, that poor orc arrow boy. Arm versus Khopesh, the Khopesh always wins. Anyway, looks like just the enemy lord remaining now. We're going to activate some Joff's incantation of Cursed Blades. Not that the bleed is going to be particularly useful here. And then get a nice charge in with the Necropolis Knights, whose Necro Serpents look pretty darn gigantic compared to regular infantry units. I almost forgot how big these things were. Alright, and now it's time to surround the enemy lord and poke away with those spears until they're ready to go. And it's still taking a while to do damage, but it looks like with the rest of the army gone, army losses wavering should lead to shattering and to the battle being ours. Alright, one more swing with that big ol' orcish cleaver, and no, he's still fighting. Alrighty. Gotta appreciate it for a first battle, not just outright giving up. But I believe that one should be it. Yes, there we go. The enemy lord will shatter, and the battle will be ours. It's almost weird seeing Khatep not on his casket of souls, but well, we'll get that up and running as soon as possible because it's a devastatingly good mount. Alright, there we go, a nice little debut battle, and I just realized I think we got an item from that first sort of choice, the 440 turn options, the Mortuary Circle, or Mortuary Oracle, rather, and I should have given it to Kata. But anyway, Standard of Discipline, I think we'll pop it on probably one of the spears, simply because they're the most likely to get obliterated by something, and I believe we're good. Endless March will maybe be necessary. It's a little bit of cash, and frankly the cash is important in the Hero League game. I think we'll be fine without taking additional troops on, so Endless March, just for the money, less so for the movement speed. Not that I'd say no to movement speed, mind you. And let's assign that other item and build some buildings and whatever else we need to do. And oh, it was a Banner of Swiftness. Alright, you know what, that's not the worst thing. I would have preferred a Rampager standard, but more power for our single elite unit of Necropolis Knights ain't the worst thing in the world. Now, let's take a quick look at Khatep's skills. Now, I'm pretty sure, okay, he does have Geheb the God of Earth, and yeah, it is Geheb. Geheb the God of Earth, but this I think can be acquired by pretty much any lord, and this isn't unique to Khatep at all. He has a little bit of leadership buffs specifically for various infantry units, including Tomb Guard, just tiny bit of leadership. Probably not something we need to be concerned about. Sandstorm, he's got buffs for Nehekar Horsemen, Skeleton Horsemen, or Skeleton Horse Archers, rather, and Skeletal Chariots, alright. Tomb Guard, well, not so much buffs, but at the very least casualty replenishment, Lich Priest thing, and... Alright, so nothing here by the looks of it gives him any kind of direct buffs to any kind of units. And this is bad in the sense that we don't get a specific unit type to, superpower with Khatep's army, but it is good in the sense that it means that we can have a varied army with whatever we damn well please in it, rather than be pigeonholed by the Lord buffing specific things. Now, Khatep, alright, let's see. Cleric Spire building, we're going to uncollect the income here because we need the early growth much more than the bonus 200 money. We're probably going to build stuff, but I want to take a look at a few things before we go. Now, Khatep is a pretty interesting campaign. There's really no wrong way to do it, but we have to pick a direction to go. I think that the direction we want to go will be informed by which books of Nagash we want early. Now, this hero capacity +1 for all heroes is great, but fortunately it isn't actually bound to any kind of enemy. Down here, the effectiveness of all commandments +50% out of the ancient city of Quintex seems like a very, very strong buff, and I think we will want to rush it. Therefore, after knocking out the orcs, we'll probably want to proceed southward towards Morathi rather than northward towards Malekith. Now, in theory, we could ally with Malekith. However, in the sort of current meta, in the sort of overworld, from previous campaigns, what I've seen is Malekith nowadays tends to ally with Chaos, which is lorefully just completely wrong. But the bad thing about that, or specifically with Valkia, is that Valkia is going to hate us because there's the aversion to us, even if we don't have aversion with Malekith. So yeah. I'm inclined to say, just by virtue of that commandment book, we should go down there first. Anyway, Banner of Swiftness on you. Hopefully that doesn't make you take more damage to the auto-resolve, because obviously this one was not worth fighting. We'll take this place, and this will give us a mortuary house for more growth. Yes, we will certainly take that. Now, if we're going southward towards Morathi, what we might want to do is ally with the Wood Elves and the Dwarfs and allow them to hold back the tide of Dark Elves. Most likely they will eventually be overrun, but by the time they are, we will be so strong we can just take back their territories. Now, the way that we can do this is to join their war against whoever here, the Dracula Coven. We won't be able to get the non-aggression pact, unfortunately, but you know what? Free money, and this will keep them probably friendly. Let's see if we can do the same thing with the Ancestral Throng, -7, and join war against Clan Septic, who we don't know at the current time, but ooh, decent amount of cash for it, though. Alright. No non-aggression pact, but we'll take this. It's money for our early game build, and on top of that, it'll hopefully keep them friendly enough to fight everybody but us in the early game. Alright, now Khatep, you've arrived at the new location. You're going to want to build as many skeleton archers as possible. And I guess we'll want to level you up as well. I wonder if you'll be able to reach Chimerica Spire in a single bound. I'm hoping that you will. Let's get your Root Marcher just in case, and Lich Priest, you can have replenished troops for obvious reasons. Speaking of Lich Priests, we should get another one on the field immediately. We do have a Wise One of the Lure of Death. Certainly potential there for the Spirit Leech spam. Ooh. Potion of Healing accompanying Lord. That's quite nice, but useless for Khatep, who has his unique mount of the Skull Artillery. Casket of Souls. Soul Artillery, I should say. The Skull Artillery is also an artillery. Mortuary Cultist is not so bad, but yeah, I think we're going to go for the Wise One just for the additional Canopic Jars per turn. Just keep spamming that stuff until we get a massive amount. Plus, we could always level these guys and then pop them into a different army afterwards as needed. Alright, global recruitment isn't going to be of any help to us. We will, however, want to upgrade Yeah, let's upgrade the Crypt Barracks. We want to get our first Tomb Guard and additional Skeletal Archers, plus early game Chariots are going to be fantastic, so we'll go for early game Chariots. As for our research, it did say Khatep has additional extended research tree. Oh, okay, yeah, all this. Alright, so I take it this is all unique to Khatep. Enable recruitment of Legion unit. Plus landmark sign. I assume that this has to be done with you owning the landmark as well. Not just, you can't just build it and then get the unique Legion units, right? I'm not sure. Once we have a spare 2.5k, maybe we'll do that. But then where would we recruit them out? Wait, let me just see here. Is this? Bright shields, Xandri black shields, green skulls. Yeah, I think this is it. Meaning, you're telling me we can just straight up build these as soon as we unlock our first Fated Pyramidion? Huh. Okay, that's kind of interesting. If that is in fact the case, that would be nice. Ooh, we got more growth here. Income from ports control, very nice. Income from all buildings. There's definitely some solid stuff in this part. And additional research as well. Oh, damn, someone's at my door. Sorry, guys, one sec. Alright, sorry about that. Now, where were we? I was taking a look at the techs and I promptly forgot, but I do believe we're ready to get our first tech up and running. Alright, so there's no real difference by the looks of it from the actual dynasty research. The difference is, which king you get as your legendary king, and these various research things. Now, this one will power up Nehekara warriors and warriors and chariots. Okay, ooh, we are going to be using a lot of those in the early game. These ones will power up the basic horsemen and a lot of skeleton archer stuff. And you know what? Skeleton archers are going to be pretty critical in the very early game. I think we're going to go for the second dynasty just for the archer thing. And then we'll probably just go to a third dynasty after. The other stuff is probably more advanced troops, which we won't have for a little bit of time. Anyway, that looks good to me. And I do believe, assuming that there's no actual Diplo, that we're ready to go to next turn. Alright. Well, let's proceed. End turn. Hopefully this plan works out. Once again, there's no real wrong way to play Khatep. He just has so many options of who to ally with and who to attack. But I think that, once again, Malekith is probably not the right decision just by virtue of him being friends with Chaos. Or at least he has been friends with Chaos in pretty much all my recent campaigns, and I don't want to risk that. Alrighty, so now we have this time of blank from SFO, and generally speaking, while time of growth is okay, it's basically 2 turns worth of growth, while this is 10 turns worth of campaign movement range, and I'm inclined to say the campaign movement range is better. Funnily enough, for the Tomb Kings, the plus 100 control isn't horrible, because it would give us the ability to build our early game buildings for a while at increased speed, but nonetheless I think I prefer the extra movement range. And by the looks of it, we're able to immediately reach Chimeric Spire. Ooh, wait, I also want to see, what do we need to unlock the Bomber Birds, the Flock of Joff? Oh, we just need 75 Canopic Jars. Alright, we can make that happen pretty quick. In fact, we should in theory be able to make it happen immediately after this turn. So, Khatep, away you go, now with archers. And we're going to pop in Tenebu into your army as well, and we'll probably fight this one since there's an enemy army there, in addition to the garrison. Alrighty, and let's also upgrade the Brassworks. Okay, we'll do it after. We want to see what we can get at Chimeric Spire as well. Alright, this looks like a pretty fun one. Pyrrhic Victory by the looks of it. It's going to be a lot of work for our Necropolis Knights, I think. We're going to have to be wary of the Orc Biggins in particular, though I think the Knights should be able to handle the Boar Boys due to their relatively low HP. Go. Alrighty, Mortuary Cult indeed. As the Mortuary Cult grows, Khatep now has 2 minion priests shambling forward along with him. I like how they all have a Kopesh along with their staffs. Gotta be able to stab and whack away after all. And yeah, Khatep's cloak is made out of sort of papyrus scrolls of whatever the hieroglyphics. Oh, I wonder what the hieroglyphics on his cloak are supposed to say, but anyway. Might be, would be neat if it is actually something. We're going to start the battle up by moving towards the enemy a little bit, just close enough to cast our Spirit Leech. Certainly going to be useful for the early game where we don't have a lot of ways to handle these single entity lords and heroes. We're going to blob up out here to slow the enemy down using the water and this sort of impassable rock terrain, in which we can use as a pseudo wall and prevent the enemy from flanking us. Or at least, that's the idea. Out here, the enemy is attempting to flank our unprotected side, or at the very least unprotected by terrain. It is protected by the Necropolis Knights. I almost dropped my drink there. And damn, once again, Boar Boy's looking absolutely tiny by comparison to the Necropolis Knights. We'll activate that incantation of Jaff's Cursed Blades, or Jaff's incantation of Cursed Blades, to get a little bit of bleed action on the enemy as they try to move in to support the Orc Boys. Out here, the Orc Boys have made it across the shallow water to engage in combat with the Skeleton Spears, who blunt their charge and then allow for the Nehekara Warriors to move on in. 2 units fighting together so that the Nehekaran Warriors aren't the ones taking the brunt of the damage from the Orc Boys. Out here, Khatep has moved in to try to fight the enemy trolls as well as the Black Orc Big Boss. Probably shouldn't be using him or the other Lich Priests in melee, but we do have the Necropolis Knights moving around, ready to protect them if need be. Looks like the enemy's sort of left flank has begun to collapse as the Orc Boys have taken sufficient damage under fire from the Skeleton Archers, and the enemy range support has been silenced once again, as in the previous battle, by our Nehekara Horsemen. Of course, the Nehekara Horsemen are fragile enough to take damage fighting the Orc Error Boys, as Orc Error Boys are still orcs and still do decent damage in melee. Just their melee attack stats are relatively low. But with a very low defense on the Nehekaran horses, just watching those Necropolis Knights charge on. Oh, I love the Necro Serpent units, both the Necropolis Knights and the Sepulchral Stalkers, and charge right back through. Oh, just run them all over, and then they all get back up again, but I wonder for how long. Alright, and this heroic unit of Necropolis Knights will now charge into the back of these Error Boys, which were dealing with our Nehekara Horsemen, sending as many of them as possible flying and then turning on towards the next unit. Soon we'll be able to build chariots and do this with not just the Necropolis Knights, but with the chariots as well. Anyway, it looks like we're starting to take quite a bit of damage on our melee infantry lines, but that's supposed to happen with the Tomb Kings. You're supposed to be able to sacrifice skeleton warriors and spears and whatnot to activate your Realm of Souls, though we haven't yet managed to get up to the first level. Alright, keeping fighting those Orc Boys. The enemy has failed to breach our lines in any way, so we're able to continuously provide covering archer fire now that we have those skeleton archers built. And of course, our Necropolis Knights are causing absolute havoc in the background. Their kill count isn't actually all that high at only 56, but the kill count sort of belies how much they've worked here. They have 30,000 damage despite only 55 kills, so they've been charging through the enemy and dishing out plenty of damage. They just haven't been racking up individual kills. And that hardly matters when they're pretty quick by the looks of it to force most of the enemy units to rout. Balance power shifts to about 90% in our favor. The Orc War Boss once again appears to be the last on the field, but by the looks of it, with army losses and with other units charging him, he'll soon be out of the picture as well. Alright, you had to leap into the camera, didn't you, buddy? And there we go, one more Spirit Leech on him, one more charge from the Necropolis Knights, and the York War Boss will at last shatter, giving this battle to us as well, just before reaching the Realm of Souls and getting a little bit of healing action. But oh well, that's why you need the Lore of Nehek to actually heal your troops up. Can't be relying solely on the Realm of Souls. But anyway. Alright, there we go, a nice little early game bout with the orcs. Once again, the orc war bosses are proving to be quite the problem for Khatep's early game army, but we have no real way to, no way to damage them whatsoever. Maybe once we get a prince in the army, they'll actually be able to duel a single entity like this, but for now, we're just going to have to contend with killing off enemy stacks and ignoring the lords and heroes. Occupy the place yet again. And Great Incantation of Xar is unlocked. Now, what do you do? I guess it's Tahoth that we really want. Oh, Xar is the useless one. Yeah, I've never found this one should be free because it's pretty useless. The ambush defense and success chance, sure. But the sandstorm attrition thing has never been a particularly great thing. Anyway, we definitely want those skeleton chariots. Get another archer and go for the spear. And just try to get up to 20 out of 20 units so that we can activate our Great Incantation of Tahoth and get our Casket of Souls, A, in our army, and B, get the right on cooldown as fast as possible. Now, Khatep will want you to have Jov's Incantation of Cursed Blades through to the Restless Dead, as we need to spam heals via spamming spells. You, I guess, can have Canopic Jar Holder, and then you, I guess, can have Replenish Troops. Alright. And, wait, that should have been enough for our first mortuary cult thing. Yes, the Flock of Joff immediately available to us will awaken despite the cost. And we'll pop him into the army, and we'll be one short of 90 or 20. But all good. These guys have that bomb ability, Death from Above, which is quite nice against blobs of units, and I'm sure will come in handy. Next up, we'll go for the Brassworks, and... we got ourselves a Charnel Plaza here. This isn't particularly useful to us, I think. It does give us campaign movement range. You know what? Let's keep it here for the turn, because who knows? Maybe we will be able to reach Hrothgar Spire in a single turn because of it. And then we'll delete it and replace it with either growth or probably public order. And the increase in public order will be instrumental because of that construction time minus 60% when at max public order, which is just swell. Anyway, double check diplomacy, and then I guess we're ready to end the turn yet again. Heralds of Ariel looking reasonably friendly. Ancestral Throng, kind of similar. Just as long as they're all fighting Malekith or Wheaties Bull or whoever else. We'll see. Anyway. Wait, what about global recruitment? Nah, it's 2 turns, not worth it. We're not going to spend 2 turns here. Let's end the turn and let's proceed to hopefully Hrothgar Spire, knock out this little faction of greenskins, and then see if we can't bum rush the ancient city of Quintex for that first Book of Nagash. Alright, also, as I recall, Khatep's victory can... Okay, the first one is kind of irrelevant, the short victory one, because it's super easy to, awaken all 4 legions of legend via the mortuary cult, so I take it that was the first. This is pretty easy, we just need... Ooh, gold. That's Hexoatl, yeah, okay, that's another reason to go south then. Of the nearest gold is Hexoatl. There should actually be another gold mine here at Grand, which is also similarly close, but going to Hexoatl will mean another Book of Nagash plus passing through Quintex, which is 2 Books of Nagash, so this makes more sense to me. It'll be a little bit unfortunate to fight the lizards, but I mean, if they're not willing to give up that book, well, that's the issue. Alright, you are going to Hrothgar Spire now. They've got relatively little there, so we should be able to take this with great ease, with an auto-resolve, in fact. Like so, a little bit of damage, but nothing to worry about. Occupy. Alright, very nice. Enemy killed in battle, Red Desert secured, and the broken chains are broken. Next, we have an open graves thing here. Let's switch to... I mean, we could save a little bit of cash here by building one of these next turn. But then we'd have to wait another extra turn. Alright, keep the Charnel Plaza since we're going to rush south. This gives us additional capacity for skeleton archers and Hekara warriors, so we could, if we wanted to, rebuild some of this stuff. And frankly, our units are damaged, so we probably should. Do this. Do this. Then go for 1, 2, 3. We're going to have somebody else build a Tomb Guard, because I don't think we can sit still and do nothing. Let's build another skeletal spear, and I guess a 5th archer. And frankly, we're going to have to replace some of this stuff with more chariots, as next turn we'll have that brass works up and running. But that's fine. Wait, how many Nehekara warriors are we getting? We already had capacity of 3. Oh, so it's just an extra 1. Alright, fine. Keep the open graves there for 1 turn, I guess. Not a big deal. Ooh, minus 12 control. Wait, if we go into the next thing, we'll have a plus 20%. No, we have to build one of the things now. Or else we'll lose a turn. Well, actually, we'll lose 2 turns then. Alright, fine. Start with Chimeric Aspire. It doesn't really matter which ones we start with, at least not at the current time. What does matter is getting to that great incantation of Tahoth. Skip, 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 and turn. Alright, now let's see how quickly we can go southward. I see that the Heralds of Ariel have taken the territory here, but, well, as long as they get engaged in combat with somebody else other than us, that's fine. If push comes to shove, we'll destroy them and possibly vassalize them, if we can. And there we go. Ancient, or whatever this thing of Tahoth is up and running. Expensive though it is, it must be done. Just gotta get it on cooldown, because these things are so critical. Alright, there we go, and there goes all of our cash with 0 income to that. You, Khatep, will... I mean, I guess just rush past Chimeric Aspire. We can recruit next turn or so. And we're moving down here. And we still have to recruit the additional chariots, but that's fine. Oh, and yes, wait, you have construction cost reduction. Is that local? Yeah, it's local province, so yes, it is local, but it's not local region, which is what I was a little bit concerned about. Now, open graves are no longer needed. 15% movement, eh? Alright, keep it for now, but we'll be deleting it shortly. And I think since this isn't going to be crazy expensive, we're going to switch at least briefly to Worship of Vasav to re-up our public order and then switch to growth right after. How do the dwarves feel about us? Alright, they're going positive. Not quite there yet, but certainly rising. And nobody else wants to be friends. Alright. And that's fine. They'll learn. I'll be clamoring to be our friends eventually. And so... wait. Restless Dead. Yes. That healing passive is very, very nice. The range isn't anything crazy at 150. It's not like it's map wide. But if we're blobbed up enough, and considering Khatep will be on his Casket of Souls, we will be needing to protect him. Everybody around him will be constantly healing, while he's also artillerizing. Next up, I think we just go straight into Canopic Jar Hoarder. Although the Spirit Leech reductions, including the Life Leeching, are tempting. You know what, let's go Spirit Leech on you, but Hoarder on you. Mostly because, I mean, the only thing I'd like out of the Lure of Light in the early game is Fa's protection. However, we have Neru's protection as well, which gives us 40% physical resistance, and is kind of similar, so yeah, we could use that instead and prioritize what we need. Otherwise, we're good to go and turn once again. And keep on rushing southward. If we can take out Morathi before she gets strong, it would be ideal. It does mean that we'll have to sort of leave the beastman Torox alone, which is going to be a danger. But we had to pick one. And I'm inclined to say the book is probably more important. Anyway, Khatep, you're going to go right to the edge of this, but you're also going to recruit this turn. And I take it this is a Skaven location. Yes, yeah, Plain of Dogs, Skaven Corruption, plus 26. I take it there at both locations. They're also green, so it's still a decent thing for us to take. Now, Skeleton Archer Chariots we'd probably want. I guess the question is, who do we get rid of? We could get rid of the Skeleton Spears, but we are using them to hold the line as the Nehekara Warriors have little to no defenses. We don't want to get rid of the Nehekara Horsemen because they're solid. But early game Chariots are really strong. Do we just get rid of Skeleton? No, but the Skeleton Archers dish out most of our damage. And we need a space for the Casket of Souls as well. Well, I suppose the Casket of Souls can replace the Skeleton Archer, so we'll do that. It is a range unit after all. I mean, technically so are the Skeleton... Man, I'm actually thinking that we gotta get rid of the Nehekara Warriors. We need these guys to hold the line and protect the Skeleton Archers, so you two out, and we'll replace you with a couple of Skeleton Archer Chariots. I wish we could rebuild you to heal you up, but not right now, apparently. Anyway, Rothkar Spire. Public order here, I do believe. And we'll replace the Charnel Plaza with a growth thing. What we want to do is upgrade you to tier 3 as fast as possible, and then get a few units. Maybe some Ushabti, maybe a Scorpion, and just in the early game. The Necro Serpent Nest is also really quite nice in the early game, as it gives you 2 units of Sepulchral Stalkers. And I've always liked the Necro Serpent units a lot. Alright, and we've discovered the Cult of Pleasure, who are down here, but I imagine the Heralds of Ariel will be pleasantly surprised by us attacking them. No non-aggression pact yet, but our relationship is rising, and I expect it will continue to do so. End turn. 747 money. Oh, man. Just the nature of playing Tomb Kings, especially in the early game. But then you hit turn like 80 and then suddenly money doesn't matter at all anymore and just keeps climbing and everything's free, so yeah. We'll get there eventually. Anyway, Khatep, you're gonna head into Great Dynasty's stance, and you know what, I should have been moving you in Great Dynasty stance anyway, but on the other hand, I think you can't recruit while in it, so yeah. Alright, nothing to build here, though next turn we'll be able to build something at Chimerica Spire, so I think for that turn we'll go for the construction cost reduction, and then we'll move to Plain of Dogs and see how many rats are there. And let's see what we got. No, just wait. Yes, we'll declare war. I want to see what's in here. Basically nothing. Nothing's in there. Huh. Who are they fighting? They're fighting the Manblight tribe. They're about to be fighting the Sand Blight. I don't know. Whatever. Die. Declare war. Yes. And we're obviously not fighting a bunch of clan rats. Standard of discipline. You know, the flyers are really fragile, and on top of that, they have a tendency to get stuck when attacking things, so we'll do that. Auto resolve, a little bit of damage on, well, the flyers, and we'll occupy the Plain of Dogs. Hopefully this gives us a decent amount of vision. I see there's nobody at Scarpool's lair, and we don't know what's here. Okay, so what we need to see is how many territories these guys have. Just the one. The question is, are they here or are they there? Building 6, okay, so they're at Scarpool's lair, and I take it there's nobody at Ice Rock Gorge. Now the problem of this is if we leave the Plain of Dogs, they'll retake it. But if we don't grab this, the Wood Elves may very well do so. But I think we probably still want to knock these guys out as fast as possible, so it is what it is. Also, we need to start saving up for rank 10, which will be a while, but we will get the Narrow's Incantation of Protection because it's a good spell. Or at least it's a decent spell. You, sir, actually both of you, you have both leveled, but we will start with you and get you life leeching. And we will get the replenish troops for you. Ooh, we do need mana, but I think we need to replenish as well. I mean, I guess we could... Could do this, and this, and this, and then do this and this. Nobody else is really damaged. Alright, that looks good to me. And I do believe, assuming that there's no Diplo to do, not yet, but Heralds of Ariel are getting closer. Oh, we should be good to end the turn and continue bum-rushing Quintex. Now, you do have to be careful with the Tomb Kings in terms of not overextending. Unfortunately, their garrisons are pretty trash, and they're rather difficult to defend if you're on the defensive. Which I've always found a little bit odd, but it is what it is. I mean, compared to garrisons like the Dark Elves get when they build their garrison buildings, which give them Executioners and Blackguard of Nagaron, the garrisons that you get for these guys are just very lackluster. Anyway, we no longer need the Charnel Plaza. Let's build the Growth Building. Or Control Building. Let's start with the Control Building. You know what? We need to start collecting the income here, so we'll start with Control. And then we'll pop into Worship of Asaph as well, to counteract the lack thereof. Alright, next up, Khatep, you are able to reach Scarpo's lair. Colonization cost 805, but I'm pretty sure the Skaven are there. It's gotta be lying about the colonization, right? Yes, it is. And these guys similarly have nothing there, however... I mean, it's the early game, maybe we fight him. Maybe we fight him just for fun. Just because we can. Anybody gonna say no to that? I don't hear any no's. Go.
Sacrifice them!
Alright, Khatep, we're working on it, rest assured. And here we go, we finally have a full stack with fancy new units. Our first Casket of Souls, most likely we'll probably have a couple of them in this army to sort of flank Khatep, and generally speaking, probably use artillery fairly heavily in his army with some Screaming Skull catapults as well. Flock of Jaffa on the field, the burning sort of scorched carrion unit that has those lovely bomb abilities that can dish out massive amounts of damage to enemy blobs, and of course our chariots, though in this particular case they are hidden in the forest, waiting for their time to flank the fragile rats. Now, Tomb King chariots are in a little bit of a weird place. They're a very weak sort of chariot in the sense that compared to sort of more elite chariots or heavily armored chariots, they are kind of pathetic. However, they're very, very solid in the early game, and they do have the advantage of having huge numbers of units. This means that in the early game, they're able to charge through big blobs of enemies due to their high numbers. However, high numbers also means that every single individual model has a lot less HP, and they are quite fragile, which is what makes them not super usable past the sort of early to mid game. Mid to late, it's kind of pointless to use the, well, at the very least, the regular chariots. I think the sort of missile chariots still have a place, as they can still annoy the enemy if you need a sort of skirmisher unit. But the regular chariots will lose their place, so we might as well use them now before we replace them. Anyway, the enemy does have a big old threatening Screaming Skull catapult. Warpstone catapult. Warpstone. Plague Claw catapult. There we go. Sticking Skaven. Warpstone. That's gotta be it, right? Close enough. Plague Claw catapult. Standing against us, and I tried to pop the Sandstorm on it in addition to using the continuous fire from the Casket of Souls, but it hasn't been enough quite yet. So we're going to switch fire and instead have one of our fast movers deal with it instead. Out here looks like some enemy Night Runners or Gutter Runners, Gutter Runners, who have slowed down one of our units of Nehekara horsemen, so we're going to give chase to them with our chariots and get them the heck away, allowing the Nehekaran horsemen to peel away and head towards that unit of Plague Claws. Out here, our Necropolis Knights, once again not really threatened by anything in this particular army any more than they were by the orcs. We're going to get to work on some rats and essentially keep them locked in place and allow our chariots and other units to move around and maneuver. Looks like we managed to get those Plague Claws out with the Nehekar horsemen just before the Flock of Joff arrived, but these guys can all clean up the sort of isolated units anyway, so it'll still work out nicely. Looks like the enemies are attempting to give chase to our chariots. We do still have to be careful with them, as I've noted, they are quite fragile. But we have plenty of other units. That said, we can't move too far away from our skeleton archers and from our Casket of Souls, so it's better to just bombard the enemy and pepper them with arrow fire as they sort of straggle on in, one by one. Or 2 by 2. Or 3 by 3, whatever, you know what I mean. Not in a big old blob. Some of them will be doing the dance to avoid shots from our Casket of Souls. Others will be run down by chariots and by the other range units, and then yet others will be separated and destroyed by our mainline infantry. Alright, there we go, another single unit caught and absolutely crushed between the Necropolis Knights, Nehekar and horses, and the flock of Joff out here. We've activated another use of our Sandstorm to do a little bit of area denial and prevent 2 units from moving forward, while we have our Nehekar warriors and skeleton spears and destroy the relatively isolated clan rats, who are also under fire from our skeleton archers. Alright, chariots are running through the enemy, not sort of joining combat directly. Or at the very least not staying in combat, just doing a little bit of cycle charging as chariots like to do. And same thing over on this side, but at least these chariots are protected by the Necropolis Knights, so they're a lot less liable to take any damage. Alright, charge on through these guys. And the early game chariots are absolutely fantastic against the Skaven. Lots of relatively weak units, a relatively little mass. And until they get Storm Vermin with Halberds or Ashen Triads or anything of that nature, or Rat Ogres, they're not going to be able to stop piles of chariots. Alright, Enemy Lord is still fighting in the same manner that an Orc War Boss would be, but there isn't much left of the enemy army. Generally speaking, the balance power is at about 95% in our favor, and once we force the Lord and the... is this a Chieftain? Wait, Warlord... Was this also a Warlord? Okay, those 2 Warlords. Alright, once both the Warlords are out, then we'll be good. Frankly, if one of them routes, I'm willing to bet the other will rout as well. How many kills have you managed to rack up, sir? 25, not so bad, but distracting the Warlord with a pile of skeletons, I think, plays into our hands. And there we go, first little Skaven battle is ours. I'm willing to bet that's just the beginning of the Skaven iceberg. Whenever you kill one Skaven, there's always 1,000 to take its place. And there we are, a tasket wrecked by the casket. We got 406 kills on it, massively outdoing everything else, but that's hardly surprising, though the chariots did fairly well as well. These guys racking up nearly 200, and solidly outdoing the rest of the line. Alright, but against Skaven, especially in the early game Tomb Kings are fantastic against them, so yeah. Those chariots just to rack up the kills. Occupy the place, obviously, and that should mean this particular Skaven faction is not destroyed. Huh. But that was their last territory, right? Wait. Which faction was that we were just fighting? It was Clan Gritus, right? Oh. Wait, was that Clan Gritus? Wait. Manblight Tribe. Yes, this was Clan Gritus. To double check. Septic. Okay, wait. Should be a way to see which factions are where. But I guess you can't do that with... you can't do that with Skaven. Damn, I don't remember which Skaven faction is up here and which one is up here, but I think this is Gritus, not Septic. Meaning they have 3 more territories here. Probably not Ice Rock Gorge, it's just that there's no Skaven corruption due to buildings here at all. Meaning it should be a ruin. Which means I guess they're down here. Yeah, buildings 3. And Sulphurets? And where else? How's Marathi doing, incidentally? She's currently fighting Sildra Tor. Oh yes, keep fighting amongst yourselves while we bum rush that Book of Nagash. Now, what do we have here? Plain of Dogs is... oh, this is a new territory. Don't collect the income for now. Keep the Charnel Plaza until we're ready to let it go. Plain of Dogs... we're going to keep the open graves here, but don't collect the income until the situation fixes itself, and allow the place to grow as well. Really, it's our main territory that's important. The rest is just sort of ancillary to us getting the book. We have also potential for taking a little stroll down to a sea lane, and then going, for example, to Cathay. Now, here's the thing. We have... let's see... Not records, not statistics. Oh, summary. So our suitable climates are wasteland, mountain, savanna, and desert. We don't particularly like jungle or frozen, which is why Khatep starts in a weird location with not a lot of territory near him that he actually likes. And in SFO, this is even harsher to deal with, so it makes me think that we should probably go somewhere. Now, there is generally sort of a migration that's kind of necessary to Khatep's campaign, as his long victory involves holding all the territories in the land of the dead, so we have to eventually go down to the Black Pyramid and all of this stuff down here. And we should probably send a hero down there relatively early so that we can potentially confederate other Tomb King's factions if they get obliterated. And from what I've been seeing in recent campaigns, and some of them, they've been doing pretty poorly. Anyway, Clan Septic is the one that's up here fighting the dwarfs. We could peace out with them for... it's not a lot of money. If it was like 5k, I would jump on that, but I think it's not worth pissing off the dwarfs right now, who are currently fighting Hag Grief and Clan Septic. Now, if we say join war against Hag Grief, we can do a non-aggression pact. Hag Grief being relatively far away, this will keep the dwarfs off our backs. Like so. Until we're ready to potentially move back up there. Now, hopefully the Heralds of Ariel won't be too pissy about us being friends with the Ancestral Throng, and conversely, hopefully the Ancestral Throng won't be too pissy about us being friendly with the Heralds, so I guess we'll have to see. Also keep an eye on that non-aggression pact. Alright, diplomacy, just to double check what I was checking before I got distracted. Doesn't look like there's anything worth doing. I'm really tempted by this. It does look like Clan Septic will die next turn. I do have to wonder how much these dwarfs will hate us for this.
There'll be plenty of time for talk.
You know what? I'm gonna peace out with them, and I'm just gonna hope they'll die this turn. Or next turn. Alright, let's see. How much do they dislike that? -6, not so bad. We can deal with that. The money is more important as we have a, well, difficult time acquiring. Speaking of, let's go for Plane of Spiders upgraded, and then we'll do Rothgar's Spire next as soon as we're ready. Good. Skip, 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 and turn. Hopefully I'm not wrong and the Skaven aren't actually sitting right here ready to retake the Plain of Dogs, or just bound up this path and into our first territory, as that would be tremendously unfortunate until we have our second army up and running. And there they are. Immutable Hemlock. You know what? We haven't invested in the Plain of Dogs, so we might want to do an ambush towards it and knock out this main stack. Oh, they're in range. Huh. Wait, so I guess there is a Skaven territory here after all. Huh, go figure, alright. I bet wrong, but, well, you can't always bet right or it wouldn't be betting. What do we have here? Ooh, Mortuary Cult Scholar gives us an additional Lich Priest capacity, which we can start leveling up in order to have them join our second army, which will be up and running in only 5 turns. You guys are gonna level. Yes, Mortuary Cult Scholar. You are going to grab, I guess, Canopic Jar Hoarder, and then you are going to grab the other point in Replenish Troops. I am once again very tempted by another point in Spirit Leech. You know what? Let's get Spirit Leech. I'm willing to bet we'll level up from the fight if we fight, and we'll still be able to replenish as needed. Anyway, let's see if they're willing to fight or they're going to run. I'm willing to bet they'll run because the Casket of Souls is strong, but we'll see. Yeah, they'll run. Alright, that's alright. Hopefully they'll stay here and attempt to hold Ice Rock Gorge, assuming that they actually have the territory. You're gonna go into channeling because we're running out of mana. Hopefully he doesn't try to jump out here. That'll be really unfortunate. But we won't be able to do anything even if he does. Alright, Mortuary House will need the growth bumped up, or we can build a few more military structures. Nah, you know what? I think we need the growth first. We'll build military structures after. I should probably reduce the construction cost of some of this stuff. Alright, fine. Briefly back into the worship of Fox, and we'll go afterwards. I'm not swearing, YouTube. Leave me alone. Anyway, let's let's see. Anything? Not really. Really wish that somebody else declared war on the Herald so we could declare war on them and then thereby earn their friendship. Alright, how many more turns? Okay, 21 turns. We gotta make sure that we save up enough money to immediately reactivate this as soon as it's good to go. For now, though, end turn. Gotta take out the Skaven before the Quintex is built up too much. I wonder where this guy's gonna go. I probably should have just played it safe and done the ambush thing rather than bothering with the an attempt to fight. I was hoping that for once the AI wouldn't be cowardly, but now it's the Skaven we're talking here. Alright, and they're out. Can't quite tell to where. Let's hope it's Ice Rock Gorge. Alrighty, trading places establish a trade agreement. We're working on it. Banner of the Hidden Dead. Stock and Vanguard deployment. That could be quite nice on a few of our units, and all we need to do is recruit 30, which ain't too bad. Get into Dynasty's stance and... yes, they're there, and ooh, valiant defeat, that's what I like to see. Beautiful. They have no defensive structure, and we do have these guys nearby, the Kislevites. I would love to ally with the Kislevites, but the problem is the Heralds of Ariel don't like them, and I think out of these two, I'd rather the Wood Elves, maybe? And the thing is, from what I've learned in my Kislev campaign and my Imrik campaign, is that the auto-resolve really dislikes Kislev in the current iteration of the game. It could be an SFO thing, it could be a vanilla thing, I don't know. But what I do know is that they can't be expected to remain alive, so we won't be doing so. Anyway, Metable Hamlock has a ton of Skaven slaves, but more importantly, warp grinders and warp fire throwers, which will be a threat to us. Let's see for how long. Go. Alright, I'm not sure what Khatep said there, but I guess it doesn't matter, because we'll sacrifice them anyway. And the Casket of Souls will be the first thing to start on that. I love watching the Casket of Souls fire. It's a very entertaining artillery piece. Alright, well, this should be a pretty interesting battle. I mentioned the last battle that it was just the beginning of the Skaven iceberg, and I think this clearly proves the point as they outnumber us pretty significantly. Now, we've hidden pretty much all of our fast movers over in this forest, so the enemy doesn't know we're here. But the main thing in this particular battle is going to be to try to avoid those warp grinders and warp fire throwers, either one of which would be absolutely devastating, either to our main line or even to our relatively fragile cav and chariots. Maybe not the Necropolis Knights, but everything else. Anyway, we're going to have our Casket of Souls attempt to focus down those enemy warp grinders, though they are running around in this sort of forest, and which is liable to block at least a few of those shots. Khatep is also moving forward himself, getting ready to cast his first Sandstorm upon them, which should be doing pretty decent damage to this pile of rats here. Once again, just got to wait until he has enough skill points assigned to be able to cast a regular Skullstorm as well. Alright, let's see how that did out of curiosity. 71 kills isn't anything crazy, but at 44k damage, I think that's pretty darn solid for a single spell. Out here, well, this is kind of interesting. A unit of Skaven slave spears peeled away from the entire enemy army to suspiciously go exactly where our entire pile of cavalry is to reveal them. AI, I don't know. Awfully suspicious to me, but oh, what can you do? Anyway, looks like the enemy will be annoyed now and start moving towards our main line. We're going to attempt to hold this hill here. We do have a little bit of impassable terrain out here around this sort of dark elven, I don't know, building out here. So we'll try to hold the hill. As long as our Casket of Souls keeps firing, we should have the advantage still. Alright, now since this annoying unit of Skaven slave spears decided to somehow magically move towards where all of our units were hidden, we're going to rip it apart with our Necro Serpents. Ooh, and they're looking pretty good in the dark there. They're going to run right through that unit of poor old Skaven slave spears, who lose half of their HP to the single charge. And as the Necropolis Knights turn, they'll probably lose the rest of their HP. Alright, quick. Yeah, being chased through the woods by one of these Necro Serpents, probably not so great. Anyway, enemy army, or blobbed up now army, is continuing to move against us, but now, here come all of our fast movers, moving together in concert. They're gonna have to dodge at least a few of those shots from the Screaming Skull Catapult, and we may even want to separate a few of them, chariots and other units, so that they can, well, not all take hits. Out here, we're also going to pin a few of the enemy blobs of Skaven in place, and allow our various chariots and our Nehekarn horses to sort of peel away from each other, so that they can attack different targets. Alrighty, oh yeah, look at that charge, beautiful. All those rats flying, they get up only to get charged again, oh yes. And that's what's great about the Tomb King chariots, the sheer numbers, the fact that you can get so many of them really early in the game and actually make great use of them. Anyway, it looks like this particular battle has split into multiple skirmishes, the main line of the enemy infantry moving towards where Khatep holds, with the rest while we take care of as many of the other enemy units that are isolated as we can with our fast movers. I suspect the fast movers will win this portion of the battle fairly quick, especially as there's nothing here to contend with the Necropolis Knights. They just gotta pin the enemy in place and allow the other fast movers to do the work. Mostly because while the Necropolis Knights can kill all these things, they're gonna take too long to do so just by themselves. Alright, and chariots charging on in again, this particular unit of Skaven getting absolutely crushed and demolished between two units at once from different directions. And we just keep on going. Out here it looks like the enemies have arrived and in fact have managed to move one of their warp grinders into the fray, popping off that seismic snare and that warp quake, which will, I'm sure, devastate our poor skeleton spears. Not a huge deal, however, as these spears and generally all the skeletons are easily replaceable. And besides, this just leaves the enemy army open to charges into the rear line. And before, we couldn't risk charging our cavalry in unless the warp grinders killed them off, but now it's no kind of issue. Out here, we've managed to distract the single unit of warp fire throwers with our flock of Jeff before moving in the other, or another unit of skeleton chariots, which sends that weapons crew running before they've achieved anything whatsoever. I have a very healthy respect for warp fire throwers and just flamethrower units in general, and they're particularly good against the Tomb King infantry. Fire weakness and all of that. Well, I guess undead infantry in general. Slow moving, blobbed up, weak to fire. Can't be letting those warp fire throwers do their thing. Otherwise, it looks like the battle is pretty much ours. The enemy lord failed to find any purchase in our lines, and any enemy units that have attempted to escape or are attempting to escape and are in routing are now being chased down by tons and tons of fast-moving units. Which is another thing that makes this sort of army great against the Skaven in particular. Normally, a lot of early game armies will have a lot of trouble having enough units that can actually chase enemies down, but since we have access to all those cheap chariots, we have tons and tons of stuff that can chase and destroy. Now, it looks like a few enemy units will in fact rally out, but they won't rally for too much longer, as the enemy just keeps on taking loss after loss, and the enemy army will rout. I mean, shatter. Well, you know. Anyway, decisive victory for us and a lovely battle against a proper Skaven stack. Alrighty, very nice. Many a rat was slain this day, and, well, they did fight back decently well, at least in some situations, but once again, that Casket of Souls and the fact that we have pretty great maneuver ability allows us to, well, outmaneuver the rats pretty significantly. Plus, Khatep's Sandstorm ability gave him 77k damage and 450 kills, outdoing the casket and pretty much everything else pretty darn significantly. Lovely. Well done, Khatep. We'll take the place that I should have moved to immediately, but, well, messed up. And, ooh, Charnel Valley Necrotect. Construction cost reduction for infrastructure buildings. I take it the infrastructure buildings are the ones that are cheap in the first place, but nonetheless, not complaining. You are going to... I mean, I guess we get the reduction and then build it at the start of next turn. Oh, damn, these guys are still alive. Huh. Actually, wait. If we can skip on the Skaven for a turn, if we can take Hag Hall, big if, but if we can take Hag Hall... we might be able to trade it to the Wood Elves for an alliance and possibly a trade agreement, which would be swell. I don't know if the Wood Elves can make use of Vol's Anvil in Nagaroth, but I imagine they can, but I also don't imagine that the AI will tech towards it as it should. Nonetheless, this might be a really good idea. Now let's level up just in case these guys decide to attack us. Not sure that they will even attempt it, but give it a try. We want to go towards Skullstorm as fast as possible, but we also want to save points for this. Meaning I think we'll hold on to the rest of the points on Khatep. What about the mages? You have maxed out Canopic Jar Hoarder now, and I guess are ready to start moving through your own tree. Let's go with Foz Protection, I think. Not really going to be casting Shem's Burning Gaze, let's be real here. And we will also do the same for you. Spirit Leech now maxed out, replenish troops, and then we're going to max out Soul Blight fast as we can, because it's a great spell. Alright, what do we have to build? Red Desert. Ugh, I don't like that the public order is dropping, but, well, what can you do? Let's build up the Sepulchre, let's build up the Regnant Catacombs, and I believe switch back to Worship of Asaph. At least until we can upgrade you to tier 3 and hopefully get a Tomb Scorpion or something on the field. Alright, Plain of Dogs, you should be good for now. Well, alright, we will get rid of the open graves, just eventually. Khatep's busy right now. Alright, and assuming that there is yet again no Diplo, and it appears that there is not. Clan Gridis really wants peace now, but that's not gonna happen. Wait. Non-aggression pact with Clark Harond. Huh, that's kind of interesting. We may actually want to break this. Not so much because they'll attack us, but because the Heralds of Ariel probably don't like this, and breaking this agreement would probably make us friendlier. Though, I wonder, does this count as... wait, how many turns has it been? 9 turns. If this was established on turn 1, technically, even though we didn't do it, you know what, let's not risk it. I don't want to risk our diplomacy getting screwy. I don't know what would happen in that situation, so let's wait until the 10th or 11th turn, and then break that non-aggression. Now, we can skip, and we can end the turn, and we can hopefully proceed to Hag Hall, if the Sisters of Twilight don't beat us there. I'm hoping that if Vroneth stays here, we might be able to push these guys into a field battle outside of Hag Hall, which would, which would favor us. Just by virtue of that Casket of Souls. If they defend Hag Hall and make use of the wall... they're both gonna run? Oh. I guess they knew what was coming. Unless the Sisters of Twilight are there. I'm willing to bet that the defenses are kind of lackluster there. And oh my lord, Dangerous Winds, minus 20% research.
Many secrets lie in the hidden places of the world, O Grand Hierophant. Perhaps even an end to your eternal exile. You should strike far afield and explore the terra incognita of the New World.
Yes. Alright, so we have the Lich Staff available for Khatep, which is an okay item. The 100% magic item drop chances, well, Clan Septic destroyed, so it's good that we pieced out with them for the free money. And we can upgrade... I guess Plain of Dogs, probably safer. Might actually be able to defend itself against something. Now, you're gonna move to Hag Hall. I want to see if these guys are still here or whether they just ran away. Alright, they're out here. Close victory, though, eh? That's a little bit iffy. These guys will probably attack us back immediately if we take it and we have suffered damage doing so. meaning we're probably better off actually manually fighting this in order to reduce casualties. Now, I don't remember how well the casket does at knocking down walls, so that's also a concern. But I'm willing to bet we could still reduce casualties, so probably fight this manually. Wait, and it does give us siege attacker, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Ooh, okay, that would have been worrisome. Alright, I guess we're fighting this one as well. This is going to be a lengthy episode for her first one. Go. Alright, mortuary cult indeed, and at last Khatep has his skeletal steed, where you definitely needed it, as he's been taking such a long time to sort of move into position to be able to cast his, storm. And ooh, the lighting in this particular battle looks absolutely fantastic. Our skeleton warriors arrayed before that dark elf city in the background, but the colors sort of match our thing a little bit more than they do that of the Dark Elves. Alright, spooky, scary skeletons standing there laughing their way, knowing that they, I'm sure, will be victorious. Anyway, we're going to start the battle off with a long trigger warning, a bombardment. We have to knock down a few of the enemy towers, and unfortunately, Caskets of Souls aren't really sort of for this type of thing. They are not going to be accurate, or it is not going to be accurate, and it's going to take absolute ages to knock the towers down. So, I'm going to speed this up, and hopefully the bombardment won't be taken too long. We're going to get some Screaming Skull catapults in here as soon as we possibly can to A, knock down the towers, and B, because Khatep should probably be using a decently artillery-heavy army. Well, then we could ally with some... Well... I was wondering, should we ally with like a vampire coast and acquire some deck gunners or something like that? We could just ally with the Skaven. There's a bunch of stuff that we can get from them as well. I guess the question would be, which Skaven would we ally with? There's an argument to be made for Clan Pestilence because they're south in the jungle and we don't really care for those territories. Plus, there's a decent likelihood that we'll be killing off Mazdamundi since we have to capture Hexoatl for one of the Books of Nagash. We could also potentially ally with the Jade Court because they, well, depending, and sometimes, usually they end up fighting Hexoatl, but sometimes they end up being friends. If they're fighting Hexoatl, we could sort of join in on that and potentially ally with the Cathians. There's a lot of good stuff in their roster that would be very nice for us. Unfortunately, the Tomb Kings sort of lack in the sort of support units, and War Drums would be quite nice for us. And even the possibility of using Cathian constructs in combination with ours. Should be nice. But anyway, it looks like the enemy towers, if not all destroyed, well, a decent amount of, well, 2 of them are destroyed, but that's pretty much all the ammunition on our casket, and at this point I figured we should probably save the rest of the ammunition for a little bit of bombardment of the enemy settlement. We wouldn't be able to probably knock down another tower anyway, and we've knocked down the 2 main towers around the gate. That should be just enough for us to head in those Necropolis Knights as well as our Lord and all heroes and start working on that gatehouse. This is SFO, however, so it's still going to take absolute ages to knock that thing down. Bunch of snakes knocking at the gates, but that's not all. We are moving up our skeleton archers. We are bombarding the walls with what we have left of our ammunition. And we'll be sending skeleton spears and Hekar warriors up there as well. I'm sure they'll start taking damage from our own skeleton archers, but maybe not a big deal. A, we're willing to lose them, and B, they're going to go up there very, very slowly, and thus while a few will die, they'll also force enemies to blob up around them and allow us to do more damage. I really like this lighting. Absolutely digging it. Alright, well, these skeleton archers are doing a good work here. And the enemies are remaining up on top of the walls, which is good for us. Merlins are going to be blocking at least a decent amount of the hits from the, or the decent amount of the arrows, but that's alright. Gate is about halfway through. And we've got we've got our first Skull Storm, or just Sandstorm, down in the enemy lines. Did manage to clip 2 units of Dark Shards, which are going to be the big threat on the field. The Bleak Swords and the Dread Spears we can certainly deal with our Necropolis Knights, I wager, without too much of a problem. Now, we don't have much in terms of damaging spells available to us, and even though using a Spirit Leech on a single unit like this is very much a waste, better than not doing any damage at all, especially as we have free mana to cast. Alright, and the first of our Skeleton Warriors have begun to make their way up on top of the walls. Hopefully the enemy will begin to be distracted by these guys and allow us to do a little bit more damage. That said, we're still hitting plenty of enemies inside the settlement. And Dark Shards with shields, you guys are broken, which is lovely. And by the looks of it, the battle is already going very much in our favor. 90% balance of power, there are still a fair few units remaining, and while we have not yet broken through the gate, a few of our units have made their way inside. Do have to be careful with the Lich Priests, though, as at least this one has gone a little bit... Oh wow, somebody went flying. I don't know who or what that was, but I guess it doesn't matter. One of our Lich Priests is out front and surrounded by the enemies, so we're going to hopefully use the Jeff's Incantation of Cursed Blades as well as the Mass of the Necropolis Knights to try and bail him out. He hasn't taken too much damage so far. In fact, he's taken very little damage so far. And we're going to drop those bombs from our units of the Flock of Jeff. Been waiting to get a good use out of this ability, and since the enemy blobs up very nicely around the gate, this is an ideal situation for it. There we go. Hasn't quite cleared the area around the gate, but it certainly opened up a sort of space. Now that the Flock of Jeff have dropped their bombs, they can start working on the enemy Dark Shards, which, unlike some hybrid units of range, are particularly terrible in melee. And even the relatively weak in melee Carrion should be able to deal with them just fine. Our own Skeleton Archers are still beating the Dark Shards, especially the unshielded ones, just by focusing them down. And by the looks of it, we have captured the gate. There we go. Not destroyed it, but captured it, but it doesn't really matter which it is, as we will be able to enter the settlement either way. Skeleton Spears now rushing forward beneath the Necropolis Knights to aid in the establishment of this breach. Out here, more of our units of Skeleton Warriors are making their way up on top of the walls. The enemy's murderous prowess will activate, which I'm sure will allow them to hold off for a little bit longer. But we've got Nehekara warriors headed up there as well, and pretty much all the enemy support units are done. Last unit of Dark Shards about to rout. The Flock of Jeff has forced 2 units of Dark Shards out here to rout as well. And while a few units will rally, it probably won't be for long either. In fact, the balance of power is such a sliver now, I can barely see it anymore. You gotta love those Necropolis Knights charging. And, ooh, looks like some Dark Riders have come back. They were around the gate previously, but got decimated by the bombs from the Flock of Jeff. But it looks like they won't be back for much longer. They will shatter. The Death Hag that was leading the enemy army will shatter, and the last holdouts on top of the walls will go as well, giving this a very lovely lit battle to us. Oh, this game is sort of a combination of the Dark Elven and the Tomb King ones, which is appropriate since it's a Dark Elven settlement that will change hands to a Tomb King. Alright, not too bad. We had to trade a few of our Necropolis Knights and trade a lot of time in that bombardment, but we don't suffer nearly as many casualties this way, so 'twas worth it. Plus, our first real siege. Occupy. Alrighty, and what? I was wondering what the Parched Oasis would do for us. It's actually quite good. On the other hand... You, given Hag Hall, would be willing to go trade non-aggression. Not quite to vassal, though. I'm willing to bet it'll be worth a lot more if we build one of these structures here, though. So I guess we could wait a couple of turns. We just need the money. I'm almost tempted to cancel something in order to be able to build something there. Huh. Wait, we could collect the income because we're willing or are planning to trade it away. And I was looking whether we could cancel anything, and it doesn't look like... Oh, we could. Also, the sort of scary, spooky, scary noises that you hear when you click on ones. I thought I was hearing things, and it was concerning there for a moment. But no, I'm somewhat sane. Anyway, what do we want here? Ceremonial bandages gives us missile resistance, which is fine, but I think we're going to pop another point into Faw's protection, as out of the light spells, those are the main ones that we will tend to use. You, sir. You have not gone further into Canopic Jar Holder, but we want to max out Soul Blight first. I think it's pretty critical that we do. Alright, and I assume that if this is these guys' last territory, and indeed it is, they will either attack us here, or they will attack at Vol's Anvil. Kinda hard to say which it's going to be, but I don't think we want to be besieged, so we will leave the settlement, despite the fact that it might cause us to, well, will cause us to make less replenishment. Now, is there anything we could do to make a little cash here? Could ask Mother Estankia to declare war on the Bleak Holds. I'm not entirely sure it's the best idea, though. Anybody who's really far from us fighting somebody who's really far. And that we don't have to sort of... No, not really. Could peace out with Grittus, but we don't have 10 turns. And we'd be wanting to move back down there. They'll most likely retake Scarpel's lair anyway, but, well, we have bigger fish to fry right now, so fry we shall. Alright, let's try Daughters of the Forest, and hope that the Bleak Holds don't come around this way. And not this. We want to join your war against the Bleak Holds. Oh, or, wait. Actually, Sildra Tor may be the better option. Yeah. I'm not sure we actually want a trade agreement with them, though, because it'll anger the Sisters of Twilight. I think we'd rather take the money for this right now. Even if it's not a lot of money. Like so, and then we will build one of these buildings, it doesn't really matter which, in order to trade to these guys. Alright, that looks good to me. There's nothing to build, there's no money, there's no points. Let's end the turn, let's see whether Hegren attempts to reclaim Vol's Anvil, or attempts to reclaim Hag's Hall, or Hag Hall, rather. It really doesn't matter either way. I do believe this faction should be destroyed, and then hopefully, and we can be nice and friendly with these guys. Oh, okay, they have destroyed it for us. Which means we could have, I guess, healed more, but oh well. Alright, now we just need to make sure that they don't attack us. We are going to -3 now. And Dracula Coven destroyed. Wood Elf Conflict. Ooh, the game wants us to attack them. And we could very well attack the Sisters of Twilight here, but I feel like they could be a decent ally, as they can hold off anything coming from the north, potentially. And like I said, we want that Quintex book first, so I think that's the way to do it. So we're gonna go this way. And then we have to think about... Alright, do we want to upgrade you? 1,200 money, eh? I mean, there's gonna be stuff to upgrade here. Oh, we need to save up the money for the mausoleum. 3,000 gold, but it'll give us Screaming Skulls.
When do we fight? Only when necessary.
How much money would they give us for... Just wait a second. Hag Hall... And we could do trade agreement and non-aggression and get 338, but we could get even more next turn. The only question is, do we risk them potentially declaring war this turn? They're not at war with anybody right now. We could get them to declare war. Nope. What about Soldier Tor? Nope. What about Hag Grief? No, still no. Iffy. They are, however, strength rank 111. Oh, we're 114. They think they're stronger than us. They think incorrectly, but... I'm not entirely sure. Let's just hope. Let's see. Oh, right, we're saving for the 10 points here. Anyway, I think with that, folks, we're out of time. That was the major battle, I think, that was liable to be had, and I think we had 5 cinematic battles in this first episode, and I think that's it's going to be a lot of editing for me either way. So, I'm going to call the episode here. Next time, we will proceed southward towards Tyrant Peak and Sulphurets and knock out this little rat plague before moving on towards Sildra Tor, and then looping back around northward to ancient city of Quintex. Hopefully these guys continue fighting each other, and I guess one unfortunate aspect... Oh, right, I was going to delete this from Scarpal Lair. But actually we could keep it there because it'll allow Hierophant Khatep to move a little bit further down to Tyrant Peak. Up here we will, well, just keep an eye on things and hope we don't get suddenly attacked by somebody. But as long as the dwarfs continue to hold the north, that'll work out for us. And who knows, we might be able to vassalize them at some point. We're gonna have to see. So, oh damn, our time of maneuvers is almost up. That's a shame. But anyway, stay tuned for more Khatep. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below. All glory to the algorithm. And thanks for watching.